The restaurant was filled with laughter that afternoon, the kind that was loud, careless, and unkind. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, bouncing off polished glasses and silver cutlery. But for one man seated quietly at the corner table, the world seemed darker than ever. His name was Daniel Reed, a janitor whose life had been reduced to endless shifts cleaning up after others. His hands bore the marks of labor, his clothes were plain, and his eyes carried the exhaustion of years lived without recognition. What he did not know was that a cruel prank had been set in motion, one that would soon test his dignity and pierce through the walls of his quiet suffering. They had arranged a blind date for him, not out of kindness, but as a joke, a spectacle meant to humiliate him. Yet fate had other plans, plans that no one in that room could have foreseen. Daniel had always lived in the shadows of success. At Wellington Harris Industries, a company that boasted wealth and prestige, he was the invisible man pushing the mop across marble floors. Every morning before the executives stepped into their glossy offices, Daniel was already there wiping down windows, scrubbing restrooms, and emptying bins that overflowed with discarded coffee cups. He was the kind of man no one truly looked at. To many, he was nothing more than a uniform, a background figure in their world of ambition. Behind the quiet exterior, though, was a man who had once dreamed of being an engineer, who had once studied late into the night with blueprints scattered across his desk. But life had dealt him harsh blows. His father's sudden death, bills he couldn't afford, and the crushing need to take any job that kept food on the table. It was on a Friday that the cruel plan unfolded. A group of junior managers, fueled by arrogance and wine during their lunch break, decided to play a prank. They convinced Daniel that a woman wanted to meet him for a blind date, someone who had been noticing his kind eyes and hard work. Daniel was hesitant. His reflection often reminded him that life had drained away his youth and left behind calluses and tired lines. But the hope of companionship tugged at him. After years of loneliness, the idea of someone seeing him, really seeing him, was irresistible. He agreed, unaware that he was walking into a trap. The restaurant where they sent him was elegant, the kind of place Daniel had never stepped into on his own. He wore his best shirt, ironed carefully the night before, and his old watch, a gift from his father, gleamed faintly under the sunlight. He waited nervously, shifting in his seat, while at the other end of the room, the group of men watched, snickering and recording, waiting for the humiliation to unfold. Then she walked in. Victoria Sterling, the CEO of the very company Daniel cleaned every day. She was elegant, dressed in a simple navy dress that radiated confidence without arrogance. Her hair was neatly pulled back, her posture graceful, her presence commanding. Daniel froze when she approached his table, certain that some mistake had been made. What he didn't know was that she had been told about the cruel prank moments earlier. Victoria had overheard the laughter of the junior managers and learned of their scheme. She could have ignored it, walked away, and let the humiliation play out, but something in her heart stirred. She had grown up watching her single mother work endless hours as a housekeeper, belittled and overlooked by those she served. She remembered the quiet strength it took to survive poverty and hardship. And now, staring at Daniel, she saw not a janitor, but a reflection of that same quiet resilience. The room grew silent as Victoria sat down across from Daniel. The men in the corner froze, their smug grins faltering as the CEO took her seat at what was meant to be the punchline of their cruel joke. Daniel, unsure, stammered, asking if she was truly here for him. Victoria smiled softly, her eyes kind but steady, and told him that she was. In that moment, the atmosphere shifted. The laughter died, replaced by an uneasy tension that hung heavy in the air. As the minutes passed, Victoria began speaking not about business, not about wealth, but about respect, dignity, and unseen worth. She spoke of how society measured people by titles and possessions, forgetting that the world stood because of those who worked quietly in the background. She spoke of how her own mother had been treated as invisible, and how she had vowed never to let another person feel that way in her presence. She told Daniel that she admired his strength, his humility, and his courage to show up even in the face of cruelty. Every word struck deep, not just in Daniel's heart, but in the hearts of those who had gathered to watch. Tears welled in Daniel's eyes as he listened. For years, he had endured the weight of invisibility, the sting of whispered mockery, and the emptiness of nights spent alone. To hear someone of power not only acknowledge his existence, but affirm his worth, was overwhelming. Around them, silence reigned. The junior managers who had planned the prank lowered their heads, ashamed, realizing that the joke had turned into a mirror, exposing their own cruelty. Some even shifted uncomfortably, their wine glasses untouched, their laughter gone. By the time the meal ended, no one in the restaurant was unmoved. Daniel didn't just leave with a memory of kindness. He left with dignity restored, with the knowledge that he was more than the uniform he wore. Victoria had not only defended him, she had reminded everyone present that humanity is not defined by status, but by heart. When Daniel walked back into work the following Monday, the air felt different. The story had spread through whispers in the office. How the CEO had stood up for the janitor. How she had shown that titles mean nothing if compassion is absent. People greeted Daniel differently that day, some with apologies, some with newfound respect. For the first time in years, he felt seen. Daniel never forgot that afternoon. Nor did Victoria. It was proof that even in a world that can be unkind, moments of compassion have the power to rewrite lives. The prank that was meant to humiliate him instead became the turning point of his life and the lesson of a lifetime for everyone who witnessed it. And so the story of a janitor and a CEO lived on not as a cruel joke, but as a timeless reminder that the worth of a person is never determined by their title, but by the strength of their soul and the kindness of those who choose to see it.